Trinidad and Tobago has been in the petroleum sector for over 100 years, developing considerable onshore and shallow water oil and gas exploration activity with cumulative production of over 3 billion barrels of oils. As the largest producer of oil and natural gas in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago's hydrocarbon sector transitioned from an oil-dominated sector to a primarily natural gas-based sector in the early 1990s. Trinidad and Tobago is home to one of the largest natural gas processing facilities in the Western Hemisphere. The energy sector accounts for about 34.9% of the country's GDP. The energy sector continues to be an integral part of the country's economic growth and long-term development, contributing significantly to the government revenues, exports, earnings, and GDP. To help us better understand this issue, we have a guest in our channel, Thackwray. He's the Director General of the Trinidad and Tobago Energy Chamber. The Energy Chamber is a membership organization representing some 400 companies in Trinidad and Tobago's energy sector, ranging from small family-owned contractors to major international operating companies in both the upstream and petrochemical sectors. Welcome.
Thank you.
Considering that Trinidad and Tobago is an island in the Caribbean, what is the state of the gas industry and how would you position yourself in the global market?
Well, so as you were just introducing, Trinidad and Tobago, obviously we have a very long history in the oil and gas industry, very different from other Caribbean islands, which are mostly dominated by tourism. We're dominated by the energy industry. So we've been in this thing for more than a century, and from the 60s onwards, natural gas, and then really natural gas really took off in the 1990s. Started off with onshore production, and then it's moved offshore, and now we're moving into the deeper waters. I think what we have is a really well-developed petrochemical sector and an LNG export sector, and we export product from those from the petrochemical plants in Point Lisas, from the Atlantic facility, LNG facility, all around the world. We are a major exporter of LNG, we're a major exporter of ammonia, which mostly goes into fertilizers, and a major exporter of methanol, which is one of the basic building blocks of many of the chemicals and increasingly low carbon fuel. We also export LPG, butane and propane. Most of that goes around the region. And the other thing I'd highlight is that we use natural gas in our electricity sector. 100% of our electricity comes from natural gas, which has given us a very stable and competitive electricity utility as well, which I think is a big benefit for the country. We were a decade ago producing about 4 billion cubic feet of natural gas a day. About half of that went into LNG, about 40% into the petrochemicals, and about 10% into the electricity sector, which mostly used in the domestic economy. But our gas production has fallen. It's fallen from 4 BCF a decade ago to now under 3 BCF. So the immediate issue for Trinidad and Tobago is how do we turn around that production and increase it, and then longer term, obviously, all these issues around the energy transition and how do we decarbonize our production as well. So those are the major issues that we're facing.
And there is evidence that gas revenues are important in terms of GDP. What is the effects of this income on key sectors like education, health, and social welfare of the population?
Well, so our gas industry obviously creates a lot of revenue for the government. It creates opportunities for companies, for private sector companies, and it produces well-paying jobs as well. So Trinidad has a low unemployment rate, under 5%. I think it's one of the lowest in the region. We have a small population, only 1.2 million people, and a pretty high GDP per capita, which the sector has really given us, with about $18,000 per capita is our GDP. We have good access to electricity, 100% access to electricity, good access to LPG, cooking gas for all households at pretty cheap prices. We have free health services. We've invested a lot in education. There's free education right the way through secondary school, and subsidized education, free means-tested education in 2 good universities, and we have a lot of technical schools as well. So that's given us a very well-educated population and a lot of trained employees in the energy sector. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like a paradise. We have our problems as well, like everywhere else. Crime is obviously an issue which many countries in the region are facing. But we have, the energy sector has been good to the country.
And also in September, your country signed an agreement with Venezuela to promote joint projects in the gas and hydrocarbon sector. Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago share an important maritime border rich in gas and hydrocarbons. What are the benefits that these agreements can bring to the national industry from your point of view, and what would be the impact on the region?
So I think really the key here is the issue I was discussing before, how Trinidad's domestic gas production has declined from 4 BCF a day to now below 3. So that means we have a lot of processing infrastructure, petrochemical plants, LNG facilities, which are all available to be used if we can get more gas available into the country. So if we can import natural gas, say from Venezuela, that means that we can use that, and then it creates a route to the international markets for that natural gas. We talk about regionally. There's a regional impact. We do sell a lot of our products into regional markets. Our LNG goes into Central America. A lot goes to the Dominican Republic and Jamaica. In the hemisphere, Brazil and Argentina and Chile, also we sell LNG into there as well. Recent years, it's quite a lot been going into Europe, in Spain in particular. So the more LNG we can process through our facilities, obviously it's good for us, but it also makes the LNG available to the world as well, to regional markets and international markets as well. The LPG, the liquids which get produced along with the natural gas, that's obviously a good regional market for that, and there's a big demand for cooking gas around the Caribbean and Central America and South America. So that's something which I think is good to offer. And really, what I think that importing natural gas by pipeline from Venezuela would allow Trinidad to do is to continue in the industry, and that would allow us then to make those investments into greening our gas production. Obviously, we're proud that we are a natural gas economy, gas being in terms of climate change one of the cleaner fossil fuels, or the cleanest fossil fuel, but also allows us then to transition while we are continuing with the industry into green hydrogen and lower carbon products. That'll take time, so we need to continue the industry as we're doing that.
Thackwray, Director General of the Energy Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago from teleSUR in English, thank you for your time, for answering our questions.
Thank you.